Like, literally, if PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, who are the three console makers, basically, at this point, and Ubisoft, which is one of the largest independent studios out there, are not interested in coming to the conference, what are we showing? Madden? Like, I guess if I could explain it, like, if Diablo 3 was kind of going more for, like, almost a Lord of the Rings, kind of big, bombastic, the world ending, and there's lots of colors and explosions and stuff, Diablo 4 feels more like Game of Thrones. It's like, there's nothing holier than just starting random fist fights in the streets. Alex, are you ready for the Total Pebble Knockdown Conference?
Yeah, what's the conference about?
It's about, Pebble awareness.
I'm unaware of this.
Oh, okay. Well, then you should totally come to the conference.
Alright, then.
Yeah, that's great. I'm just getting word that the TPK conference has been canceled.
Oh.
Rock slide.
That sounds like something that would happen to us.
Yeah, it certainly did. The conference center completely destroyed by a rock slide. We really should have done the conference earlier. Anyway, hi everybody, and welcome to Total Pebble Knockdown. I am Nathan.
And I am Alex.
And now, I guess you get to all watch a TPK live that doesn't even involve a conference, so aren't you lucky? In today's Weekly Muse, E3 is cancelled!
Rip.
Rip.
F in the chat for E3.
Word came down not too long ago, actually just a couple days back, that E3 for 2023 is going to be canceled. It was scheduled to happen in June, and it's just not going to happen. It was supposed to be held June 13th to the 16th at Los Angeles Convention Center, and it would have been the first in-person E3 event since 2019.
Right.
So people are aware. Now, previously, there was a little pandemic that was going on that was keeping them from doing a live in-person one, and they did mostly, online conferences before.
Right.
However...
And going into this, you had thought that's the reason that they are not having it this year.
When you first shared the article with me, I sat there and said, oh, are they worried about, another scare or something? Or is there, an uptick in cases, around the center or something? Two sources, I'm actually reading from the IGN article at this point. Two sources have confirmed to IGN that the organization announced the cancellation via an email sent out to members today. The email said that while E3 remains a beloved brand and event, that the 2023 version simply did not garner the sustained interest necessary to execute it in a way that would showcase the size, strength, and impact of our industry. So basically, they can't make it as much of an event as they previously did.
Right.
That's not boding well for the future of E3.
No, it definitely isn't.
No.
If you continue on the article, too, it's because of Ubisoft?
Well, Ubisoft is part of it because they have their forwards. That's actually part of a much larger thing, and they actually...
Oh, yeah.
They do talk about this. The news comes as multiple big names in the industry from Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation, and more recently Ubisoft announced that it would not be attending E3 in any capacity, with most opting to host its own digital showcase. And I think one of the things that happened over the last few years is you started to see a lot more of the Nintendo Directs and the Ubisoft Forwards and the PlayStation now conferences and stuff that they can do digitally, that they can release and edit and do all the work on before they ever release it, and they can do it cheaper than having to create a booth, because if you've seen previous E3s, those booths took a lot of time. Some of those booth displays and what they had to do to set those up and what they cost to just be there in the first place is an expensive venture. It's a lot. And as many people probably know, even though it's really neat for a lot of gamers to go to conferences like E3, Mostly what they are there for is for potential investors and stockholders to show off the products. And if you can do that as a digital showcase where you can just launch a video with some talking heads discussing the games and then put out your trailers for the games, it just makes more logical sense to do that if you get the same kind of interaction. Since we haven't really had an E3 in person since 2019, have you personally, missed it or thought anything about it?
Not really. I'm gonna be honest, I barely notice it half the time.
Right.
So I see the big headlines, like PAX was the other weekend, and it's like, oh right, PAX.
PAX East, yeah. It just happened. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't really pay attention to that stuff too much, so don't really notice it till it's going on, and I'm like, oh cool.
Yeah.
Anything interesting? And then I'm like, oh, nope.
Yeah, it's pretty much just there so that you can see what the big announcements are, and a lot of times they can just do the announcements online anyway. They found that it was so much easier to do their Nintendo Directs, and they can do them periodically throughout the year whenever they feel like they want to.
Yeah.
So it gets to also be more of a control issue where it's not just, I gotta wait to announce stuff until E3. Earlier this year, Xbox had done a showcase, which I talked about, where they were talking about Redfall and Hi-Fi Rush and all the games that they wanted to preview, and they just did that on their own. They launched it out to the public. Anyone could watch what they had at that point. So I think from just a marketing and control standpoint, it's a little bit easier. I think you get less of those awkward moments like you guys don't have phones or something like that we have at live conferences where people are not prepared for the question and answer periods. I always wanted to be able to attend just an E3 just to see it for myself. I don't think I'm going to get that opportunity now. Because
we'll see. They say that they're possibly gonna be doing it going forward, but
literally, if PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, who are the three console makers basically at this point, and Ubisoft, which is one of the largest independent studios out there, are not interested in coming to the conference, what are we showing? Madden? Are we doing, is it just E3 coming to say, EA to coming to E3? Is that all we're doing?
Yeah, is EA doing any of their own things?
I'm sure EA,
really?
I imagine that EA was probably assuming that they would go to whatever is going on, but I think EA has periodically done digital conferences, which is probably what they're going to do. And, I mean, Devolver ended up doing their own showcase anyway. With a slated video. So I'm assuming that they'll just release that whenever they want to. But in terms of an in-person conference, no, it doesn't have anything to do pandemic related. It has to do with not really having a lot to show, which is depressing on so many levels. But I don't know. I also understand how companies feel about being able to put out their stuff when they want to put it out instead of going to a big conference, and maybe that just makes more sense in the landscape today than it did, 20 years back when you didn't have the framework to do a digital conference like we do now. I guess now I just have to try and get to a Comic-Con once.
There you go, and a PAX.
Get to a PAX and a Comic-Con. Those will probably be the two things that I try to get to before I die. Whenever that is. Maybe in that rock slide. But anyway, so I'm just going to pass the question along to everybody out there. Have you been to an E3? Were you hoping to attend one? And does it really even matter to you? Leave a comment down below. Let us know. Alex, a little while back, you got onto a soapbox about the Diablo 4 closed beta.
Yeah, we talked about that.
We did, and it was so well received by the people. They just really loved that. And no notes. We have moved past that, and now I get to have an opinion because we had the open beta weekend.
Yes, we did.
to talk about that, because I played myself, so I have had hands-on experience. I hear you also were in the open beta as well, or
I wanted to see how it was doing since the closed beta,
which is something I wanted to talk to you about. So I have very strong opinions. I'm gonna say right up at the front. I don't know how strong an opinion they are, but I did want to talk about my experience with it, wanted to get your opinion on it, so let's jump into that. So for people who are not aware, Diablo 4 is going to be coming out in June, but this was the open beta weekend just so that millions and millions of people could come in to try and experience the early build, where we were in the first area. I don't really remember what the name of the area was, but it's
it's fine.
It's the tundra area.
There's actually a lot of like small towns in the game instead of like the 3 ones that were in Diablo 3.
You had told me about that, but I was surprised by it, and I was trying to kind of like wrap my head around like going from one village to another, because in every Diablo game I've ever played, there's like a centralized town, and then you go out from the town and the rest of it is just hack and slash everything. And in Diablo 4, they start you off in the one little town with the crazy zealot people, and and then you go to like the main town, I guess, but then there's also all of these smaller areas that also have vendors and quests and sub-quests and everything like that. I personally liked it, just because it made the world feel more lived in. Like, from an atmospheric point of view, I never really understood why every single area of Diablo had this one town, and then it's just nothing. This made it feel a little bit more like an actual world where you go to different places. The other thing that I noticed right away from, like, Diablo 3 is tonally it feels very different.
Yes.
And it not just in the look, but just in the way that it's all presented, feels a little, like, darker and more sullen than 3.
Yes, which I went over a bit, talking about in the closed beta.
Right. Now, me personally, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I noticed it very prominently. Like, I guess if I could explain it, like, if Diablo 3 was kind of going more for, like, almost a Lord of the Rings, kind of big, bombastic, the world ending, and there's lots of colors and explosions and stuff, Diablo 4 feels more like Game of Thrones. It's, like, dirty and gritty, and people are dying all over the place, and the world is in despair, and you don't know if there's any way to solve the problem that's going on. So just from the aesthetic point of view, I liked it. I understand your comment about the colors being washed out, because there is a certain washed out quality to it. However, I did like the level of detail in all of the maps and the world that they put in. If you really look at it, there's like the tracks of mud where you can see where the carts have gone by on the streets. Yeah. And if you step over them, your footprints show up in the tracks. The level of detail in the stonework and the little tiny stuff that if you really look at it close enough, you're like, boy, they probably didn't need to put that level of detail on it, but...
Yeah, I do feel nice. Like they made the color palette just a little bit more vibrant. Like, it's not super bright and colorful, but I feel like at least it's... Not that I'm going straight from the closed beta to the open beta and looking at it, but it didn't feel quite as drab.
It's not as muted.
Yeah.
Maybe that might have been something that they modified since closed beta too. Character customization. So 3 had a little bit of character customization, but not a ton. I mean, I think you could choose some image stuff for your clothing, right? You could do some transmog stuff.
That's about it.
That's about it.
You could pick a male or female character, and then you could pick... Yeah. Like, you could transmog and then dye your outfit.
And you could dye your outfit, yeah. So this one does a little bit more. You can actually do more with your facial features and prominent markings and everything like that to try and differentiate your character from other characters.
Yep. Hair, eyes, tattoos.
Yep, all of that. And then anything that you've, like, broken down for different pieces of clothing you can use as a transmog item to change the clothing itself, and then you can dye individual pieces of clothing around and stuff like that. It's not nearly as detailed as some of the RPGs that I've seen, compared to like maybe a Fallout, that kind of franchise. It's not as detailed. However, I don't necessarily mind that, because there is a point where character editors get to a level where I spend way too much damn time trying to make the nose right, or something like that. And they don't really do that. They just kind of give you a series of options for a few of the main characteristics, and then they let you on your way so that you're not bogged down with it. They can say, here's some options. It's not a Cheesecake Factory menu. It's not that. So I don't mind it, but I did like that there was more customization than in previous Diablos. Now, this is the thing I wanted to ask you about, though. Skill trees. I remembered when you were talking about the closed beta, you had played, what was it, a Necromancer and a Druid and a Barbarian? I think you tried those? Okay. So I wanted to try... I tried the Rogue and the Sorcerer this time. Oh, okay. Because, see, when you had said that those were the three, I was like, well, I'll probably try a Necromancer anyway, because I like Necromancers, and I will try a Sorceress because I wanted to see the Spellcasters. I wanted to try something different. So that's what I did. I got my Necromancer to level 25, so yay me. And by that point, I had all legendary gear, and I had done the extra quests and everything. That was the primary class that I played. I was under the impression that the skill tree was more like a sphere. That's what I thought it was, but it's not. It's like a tech tree, where I put in a certain number of points after you have a few options, and then you unlock the next one, and there's a few different options. That's an interesting change. Like, I like that better than 3, because in 3 you didn't really get to choose much except what was equipped.
Well, yeah, 3 wasn't much of a skill tree. It was just a, hey, you have abilities, pick them.
Yeah, pick them to equip. It's more like 2, but 2 would have you go down different sorts of tech trees to get the better abilities in those trees. This is a little bit more compartmentalized, where you can, I could take with the Necromancer a bone spell at the start. And then when I get to the second tier, I'd say, I want to take a shadow ability this time. And if I wanted to do something the next time, maybe I could take like something that does decay damage, something like that. It's not so much like, you go down this tree of all the spirit or bone spells. I can pick and choose them as I go down that tree. And the only thing that I need to unlock it is to put a number of points into my overall skill tree. So it's a little bit more customizable as to what you're using. I'm sure there's going to be some min-maxers that go, no, you have to put them all into this. But it does give you the option of not, just taking everything from a certain tree to create a build. Yeah. So, I mean, I thought that was fine. I didn't get lost in the process. Sometimes there were, like, a bunch of options where I was looking at passives and stuff like that, and I was like, does this really help me out much at all? Because the passives don't give huge bonuses, honestly. There's, on like the second tech tree of the Necromancer, you can take some points into a thing that's going to increase the amount of essence that you have, but it's like 3 points each. Yep. And like one of my little Spirit Reaper things costs like 20. So even if I put like 3 points into it, I've effectively gotten half a reaping. So I was a little surprised at how passives, which I usually like to put in on skill trees, were very weak in most cases.
I noticed in the Sorcerer tree some of the even just the abilities that had their second and then third parts to the abilities.
Yeah.
Because you know how they're broken off to, here's the main ability you're using, and then it has an option, like the next passive ability for it.
Sure.
And one of 2 options.
Yeah.
even some of those were kind of underwhelming for what the ability was. Like, these seem very situational.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. Like, yeah, I took a firebolt, I think, for the first spell, because I was like, well, what I'll do, thinking, having played the Necromancer and seeing how these lines go, I'll take a fire spell to start, and then on the next line, I'll take a freezing spell or a lightning spell, and then I'll take a freezing spell. The next one after it is, you pierce through enemies that are already on fire. And it's like, all right, okay, that's cool, because, like, if they're in a line, and then I think the one after that is, like, 20%, there was options for, like, hey, 20% of them get, like, weakness or something when they're on fire, and I'm like, all right, I don't really even know what that means, but cool. Bone Spear, same thing. I took that, but even the upgrades to Bone Spear were, like, very minimal damage increases past the first. There's definitely diminishing returns, which I don't know if that was so that people would focus on taking a lot of different skills instead of focusing in on certain ones, but it would have been nice to have a little bit more incentive to go down those little trees and, specialize in some certain things if you find something that you like. That would have been good. The idea of that compartmentalization for the skill tree too, where I can take different, elemental abilities, really helps with the sorcerer.
Yeah, I mean, I took Chain Lightning because...
Oh, me too.
That passive where it can actually bounce off yourself and increase your damage.
Yeah.
Quite nice.
Oh yeah, I did invest heavily into Chain Lightning, and I did realize that Chain Lightning does make a lot of encounters very easy. The Fallen come out, and you just, like, one Chain Lightning. Bye. Have a nice one. See you later. The Necromancer was great. Like, I really love the Necromancer. I like the whole Book of the Dead thing where you can customize the skeletons and your mages and eventually your golem when you get the golem. That was really neat. I like that a lot. Having just this big army that just walks around behind you, very cool. Blizzard has actually released some of the data from the open beta, I should say. And the Necromancer and the Sorcerer are the most played classes out of the 5. I'm basic. I played the 2 that everybody played.
So here's a question for you, though, because it's something we went over before, and people mentioned in the comments of the last video. How did you feel about the online play, as it were?
Yeah, I
because
did talk about that.
This one was... as much as people in the comments before had said you can play the whole storyline solo, this was an online experience. After you got to the first town, you were in a shared hub, and you could go out and do events in the world where other people were playing. Yeah,
so I think it's important to clarify whether it was not specific or not. When Alex... Hey guys... When Alex was saying that this one is an online experience, not like the other ones, he wasn't saying that it's not attached to Battle.net. He's saying that it's obvious that you're not playing alone. Like in 3, I played plenty of 3. You'd never have to see another person in 3. There's, like, not people around. There are hub areas where you can interact with others, similar to, like, in 2, where you could connect to Battle.net and you could do it as a multiplayer experience. 4, you're just with people. They're just there. They're wandering the world. And as far as I can tell, there is no way to turn that off. Like, you can make your profile private, but people will still come. People are still there. You'll be wandering around the landscape, and people will still be there. Which made me think that what they're trying to do is create more of, like, almost like an MMO experience. The way that it's presented with, people being able to randomly be in those servers, in those games, and also the Radiant quests, where you would be able to just like stumble upon this area where, oh, you got to destroy all these totems, or oh, we've got to destroy this, area boss, the Radiant Quest bosses that just pop up.
To be fair, this could just be because it was open beta and they wanted to stress test servers, which is one thing they do with open betas.
Yeah.
There could be, and people said that they said there would be a ability to play solo.
Great.
So if there's an ability to play solo later on
in the full game
when they're not doing the betas, that'd be cool.
That would be cool. I can understand why they would want to do it online, because, if they were just testing people and downloaded the game and just played it on their set, they wouldn't be able to collect a lot of data. Sure. Okay, I can get that. But if I were to have a note, when you create a world like what they're doing with Diablo 4, where it does feel more sullen and more isolated and more gritty and realistic, having a bunch of other heroes running around doing quests all over the world that you just randomly stumble into kind of ruins that atmosphere for me. It no longer feels like, oh, this world is so desolate and there's so few people that can actually deal with Lilith and her demon army and stuff. No, there's like 50 dudes in the town right there. I'm thinking we're good. That's the reason why I'm really hoping that there's a single player experience where I'm not encapsulated around other characters, where when I have to deal with a demon, I have to deal with the demon. I have to deal with this, because, there were plenty of times where it was like, oh, you went into those ruins, oh, big demon dude, you gotta slay him in the time limit. But it so happened to be at the same time that, like, 2 other high-level players were wandering through, and by the time I got there, like, the monster's practically dead already, and it's like, wow, the stakes really were not that high.
Yeah. I'll let you know that from playing World of Warcraft and having similar things like that with the World Quest system.
Yeah.
One thing players do, and have an easy time doing because there's enough data for it, is they have timers.
Oh.
All these world bosses and these monsters are on timers, and they respawn after a set amount of time.
Yes.
So what they'll do is they'll sit there.
Yep.
And they'll wait until the monster respawns,
and
then murder it.
Yeah.
And then they'll move on to the next ones, and they'll just do this daily.
Considering how easy it was for me to get, like, legendary gear by the time I got to 25, I don't really know how much you need to sit there. One thing, though, that I did like about the system with gear and customization was when you do get the legendary gear and you have, like, specific skills, like the abilities that they have on there, if you want to break down the item and keep it and put it on another piece of, like, legendary gear, you can do that, which was very helpful. Some of them are whatever, but then some of them are, like, you build your character around the skill. I had one for the Necromancer where, like, my Blood Mist ability could explode corpses when you went over them, and when you did that, it also reduced the timer on the corpse explosion every time that it happened. So what I would do is you could just walk up, start shooting some of the little guys, kill them off, then go to Blood Mist form, wander over the pile of the corpses, create about 100 explosions. Your timer then completely resets at that point right afterward, and you've dealt massive damage to more characters who have probably also died, left more corpses so that you explode those too. And I was able to get a lot of achievements for, like, kill so many enemies in one, in a certain amount of time or whatever, very, very quickly. So some of those abilities are really good, and so they allow you to, break down the item, but keep that ability for better gear. There's, still crafting, like there was in 3, so that you can upgrade certain pieces of gear, several levels. So they took some of the interesting things, I think, for a user interface standpoint that 3 had. But I was very happy that they seemed to be trying to emulate more of 2 than 3. in the structure of the game, because I like 2 more,
Yeah.
to be completely
2 is a
honest.
classic, so...
2 is a classic. 2 was always very, very good. And it feels like they're trying to, in the way they're doing skills, in the way they're doing classes, in the way they're presenting the world, they're trying to emulate 2 far more than they were trying to emulate 3. Even the classes themselves are very similar to 2. Like, we've got the barbarian, we've got the necromancer, we've got the druid, we've got the sorcerer. I didn't play the rogue, but it felt like it was kind of like the Amazon and the assassin
It was like a mixture of them.
Right, because you got traps, but also long-range bows and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, you had, like, daggers you could dual wield, but you also had bows and crossbows, so...
Right. Having played all 5, somebody in the comments is going to get me, playing all 5 of the classes now, did you have a personal favorite, and what did you like about them?
Necromancer's pretty fun, because Army of Undead that you can customize is always interesting.
Love the Necromancer, yeah.
Barbarian was interesting, and it's probably going to be one of the meta classes. As much as it wasn't one of the top ones people played, I feel like the way you can customize and just expertise, like, single out one type of weapon.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
There's going to be some interesting, brutal builds. I don't think I spent enough time with the druid.
Sure.
To see its potential unlocked,
yeah.
And I definitely didn't spend enough time with the rogue. Probably say necromancer, just because having an army of the undead is enjoyable. Or you could just not do an army and do a solo build.
Yeah, you can. In the Book of the Dead, they do give you the option to basically sacrifice, having the different things for getting passive bonuses for your character.
Yeah.
So, I didn't see the value of it personally, because having the giant army of skeletons seemed like a much better deal than...
I'm sure there are builds that would benefit from it.
Like, when I played the sorceress, I thought to myself, like, one, I was like, well, actually, a lot of these spells are very, very powerful, and you recover mana very quickly, so it's easy to continually cast spells. But then the other thing I noticed, and I was happy about, is a lot of the skills that you have are similar to the ones that the sorceress had in 2. You have the Hydra
and Diablo 3's Wizard as well.
And the Wizard in 3. The Necromancer has a lot of spells that are very similar to previous spells. You're probably going to be right at home if you played previous Diablo games. I mean, it's Necromancer all the way for me. It always is. Every Diablo game I want to play the Necromancer anyway, so... Has the open beta changed your initial impressions from closed?
Yeah, it's a little bit more favorable, because they're not plopping you down in the middle of a town that you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like they did in the closed beta.
Gotcha.
Like, you have that little bit of an intro. Like, it's kind of like the beginning of Diablo 3. You start outside town, you have to make your way to town, and then it kind of gives you this whole event that actually, like, fuck happened, you know?
Right. They give you a lot of lead-in before you get to the story itself.
So, closed beta had none of that. You just were plopped in, you didn't get any of the story, it was like... which felt off. It's like, I don't know what's going on at all, so this doesn't... Like, from a gameplay standpoint...
Yeah.
It was... Mechanically, the combat and everything was fine, but I feel like most of the people that are going to be playing a Diablo game...
Yes.
Are hooked in because they're curious to see what they're doing with the story.
Right.
As fun as Diablo can be for a hack and slash, it's like there are plenty of other hack and slash games.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's been emulated to crap at this point.
I want to know the continuation of the story from 3.
Right.
And 2.
Right.
Which is going on, not just hack and slash.
Yeah. And what I was impressed by, like, having played the main story part of the beta all the way through to the end, is obviously the focus here is on Lilith and what's happening with Lilith in terms of Sanctuary and all of that. But what I thought was very interesting as like a subtext for the story is it seems like they're going to talk a lot about kind of the downfall of the Herodrum, and that in some ways this might actually be more about a story of them.
I'm sure you are aware that the guy you meet, Lorath.
Oh, Lorath, yeah.
the Horadrim that you meet at the beginning of the game, he was in Diablo 3.
Yeah, he looked familiar, but I couldn't remember. It's been so long since I played 3.
He was the Horadrim dude that is hanging out with Tyrael.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah.
And Tyrell's explaining what the Horadrim was and whatnot. In 3, to him, and he's the guy with the polearm in town. And so you meet him, and it's years later.
Well, similarly, like, 3 took place, 20, 30 years after the first... after the second game, because the Barbarian is just a lot older. It's not something that I would necessarily... I'm not going to pre-order it, and I have no intention of rushing out to get it when it first releases. But I thought, as far, if for a Diablo game, and for the experience that you'd be looking for Diablo, I think it's going to service that. I think if you liked previous Diablo games, this is going to be more of it. And I could definitely see, exploring the world more at some point. It would have been good to have maybe a little bit of a peek at some of the other areas, just to see the differentiation in terrain and, biomes that it has. Because, it's a lot of tundra. It's a lot of tundra.
You want to go back to Karast?
Yeah, always. I like that it felt a little bit more interconnected, not just go to Act 1 or 2. It felt like a more interconnected world that you get to explore. It served the purpose that it was trying to serve, which was not just to do beta testing, but also to give people the idea, yeah, this is the game. Don't you like the game? I even got a notification, as I'm sure you did, letting me know that, thank you for participating in our beta. And, here are some unlockable rewards if you pre-order for the Wolf Pack and stuff, since you reach level 20. It's cool. Probably not enough of an incentive for me to pre-order or to order right away, but... I could definitely see it being a huge release, and it will probably sell incredibly well when it comes out in June. So, yeah, if anyone out there had played in the beta or had any thoughts about Diablo 4, what do you think about it? What do you think's going to happen with it? And right now, where would you rank it in terms of the other Diablo games? Because it's probably behind 2 for me, but it's definitely better than the first one. And I can see it being significantly better than 3, for me at least. So, let us know in the comments down below. We talked a little bit about some of the playtest material that Wizards put out for the Druid.
Yes.
Last week.
Yes, and I'm curious to see what people in general that play that material say about the Druid's wild shape changes.
Yeah, that is the big change there.
Because I know someone who listens to the show who listened to that part was big mad about that.
Yeah. Like I said in that one, just the TLDR version, it would be really good if there were multiple stat blocks for creature of the land and water for different purposes. That would be lovely. Anyway, there was 2 classes, though, that was in the playtest material, and you are familiar with the other one as well. It's the Paladin.
Hooray!
So I wanted to go over a little bit about the Paladin. We'll just run through it, and we'll see if there are any huge changes to it. I don't think that it's changed all that much, but I also have not played a Paladin before. You have. As you probably know, Paladins are holy warriors in terms of what they get at the start. They're still working on a 1d10 for your hit dice. It's, wisdom and charisma saving throws, athletics, insight, intimidation, medicine, persuasion, religion for your skills. You don't get any tool proficiencies, but you do get proficiency with light, medium, heavy armor, and shields. Your basic starting equipment, you know what you get. You get chainmail and stuff, or 50 gold pieces worth of gear. First level, lay on hands.
Perfect.
Great.
That's the staple point of a paladin.
Right, yeah, your blessed touch can heal wounds. You have a pool of healing power that replenishes when you take a long rest. As a magic action, you can test a creature and draw power from the pool of healing to restore a number of hit points to that creature up to the maximum amount remaining in the pool. In addition, you can expend 5 hit points from a pool of healing to remove the poison condition from the creature, rather than using those points to restore hit points.
Okay, so Lay on Hands becomes a little bit more versatile. You can heal or cure poison.
Right, you have a little bit of extra functionality to it, which is okay.
I'm gonna guess this later on extends beyond poison, but we'll find out.
We'll find out. By the way, the pool, you can restore a total number of hit points equal to 5 times your paladin level. So,
okay.
We're starting at level 1, so you start out with 5 to begin with. So you can
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30,
all the way up to
40.
100 when you get to level 20.
There you go.
You also, of course, get spell casting. I don't need to go over that. You have spell slots, you have healing abilities, it's mostly priest levels abilities, divine spells, I should say, pulling from the divine spell list. Level 2, Divine Smite. When you strike a target, you can channel divine energy to smite it. Immediately after you hit a target with an attack roll using a weapon or an unarmed strike, you can expend 1 spell slot to deal radiant damage to the target. The damage is 2d8 for a first level spell slot, plus 1d8 for each slot level higher than first. You can use Divine Smite no more than once per turn, and you can't use it on the same turn that you cast a spell. Okay. So, dealing a lot of radiant damage, basically.
Were people doubling up on spellcasting and smiting?
Wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, interesting. I never considered that before, because generally speaking, to cast a spell is a full turn action.
Right, and you have to use the spell slots.
Right,
so... Which you still do.
I guess if you had a spell that took a bonus action, you're not saying I'm using smite and then attacking, you're attacking, hitting, and then using smite after you've already hit, so...
Right.
It's a good differentiation between wasting a smite and not wasting a smite.
Also, at 2nd level, you get a fighting style. They say it's either defense feat or you gain another fighting style feat of your choice. They suggest that you use the defense one, but whatever.
Sword and shield.
Sword and boards. Swords and boards.
Like a one-handed polearm and a shield, because that makes more sense.
One-handed polearm, yeah, for the reach. Yep. 3rd level, Channel Divinity. You can channel divine energy directly from the outer planes, using that energy to feel magical effects. Each time you use the channel divinity, you choose which effect to create from among those you have from this class. Divine Sense, which is the one that you get at the very beginning here, is as a bonus action you can open your awareness to detect celestials, fiends, and undead. For the next 10 minutes, or until you have the incapacitated condition, you know the location of any creature of those types within 60 feet of yourself, and you know its creature type. Within the same radius, you can also detect the presence of any place or object that has been consecrated or desecrated, as with the Hallow spell.
60-foot radius is a little too close for comfort.
I think if I'm 60 feet inside a place that's desecrated, I'm too close.
Yeah, and only being able to detect those things 60 feet away, pretty sure I could already see them with my eyes.
I could see them with my eyes. It's also just, like, if you think about normal, like, run speeds and stuff, they're on you inside, like, 2 turns.
Yeah.
So, I guess enough time to prep, but... 3rd level, you get your Paladin subclass. We'll talk about Oath of Devotion in a minute. 4th, you get a feat. 5th, of course, you get an extra attack, because almost all martial classes would. 5th level, Faithful Steed. You can easily call on the aid of an otherworldly steed. You always have the Find Steed spell prepared, and it doesn't count against the number of spells you can prepare. When you cast the spell, its casting time is an action. You can also cast the spell once without expending a spell slot, and you regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest.
Interesting that paladins in all the games that they're in always, for some reason, get a steed.
Maybe there's still a feat where it's like mounted fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Where you get bonuses if you're mounted. And I always thought that didn't make a ton of sense, because most people don't just have horses around. You have to, like, find them, go and buy them. But I guess if you can just, like, summon one out of your Celestial Butt, you can you might as well take all the bonuses you possibly can for mounted combat. So there's that. Did previous versions of Paladins have ability to find Steed? Find Steed was a spell.
I don't remember.
Okay.
But like even in video games, Paladins always have like, even though like World of Warcraft and Diablo, both the Paladins can like summon a steed.
Yeah, it's like a thing. It's like a thing. I wonder if you can name your steed.
No.
Like, no, I can't.
Nope.
I can't
You
call
can't
him
name a
Mr.
butt
Ed.
stallion.
Oh. Yeah, Butt Stallion. That's what I was going to name. That or Mr. Ed.
Well, since you said pull it out of your divine butt.
Oh, yeah, Butt Stallion would make a lot more
sense.
sense.
Holy butt stallion.
Holy Butt Stallion. I call a proctologist. Anyway, level 6, you get a subclass feature. 7th, Aura of Protection. Okay, so we finally get into auras at 7th. You radiate a protective invisible aura that extends 10 feet from you in every direction, but it doesn't extend through total cover. Alright. You and your allies in the aura gain a bonus to saving throws equal to your charisma modifier. Minimum bonus of +1. If another paladin is present, a creature can benefit from only one aura of protection at a time. The creature chooses which one when entering the auras. Okay. So, that's not bad. Considering that the auras, you don't really have to do anything for the auras. You just kind of like, you have them. So,
they're just there.
So any creature, like, charisma bonus could be as high as 5. If you're up to 20 for a stack block. So, +5 to saving throws. That's good. I think the only problem is that they have to be inside of 10 feet of you. So, that's a little close. Because for a lot of times when you're strategizing in a party, you might not want the whole party to be in easily fireballable range. Yeah. But, hey, I'm not gonna knock a +5 bonus. Especially because the paladin also gets it. So you always have it as a paladin. 8th level, you have a feat. 9th level, Abjure Foes. As a magic action, you can expend one use of your channel divinity to overwhelm foes with divine awe. As you present your holy symbol or weapon, you can target a number of creatures equal to your charisma modifier that you can see within 60 feet of yourself. Each target must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the target has the dazed and frightened conditions for 1 minute, or until it takes any damage. On a successful save, the target has the dazed condition for 1 minute, or until it takes any damage.
Okay.
So, well, that's good crowd control, though. That's good crowd control, because, again, your charisma modifier, I mean, at 9th level, we're probably looking at maybe, 3 or 4, I would imagine. 3 or 4 creatures, being able to target them and they either get dazed or they get dazed and frightened can significantly reduce a mob coming at you, so not bad. 11th, Radiant Strikes. Okay. You are so suffused with divine might that your weapon strikes carry supernatural power with them. When you hit a target with an attack roll using a simple or martial weapon, the target takes an extra 1d8 radiant damage.
Now, is this just passive?
Yep. When you
Nice.
hit a target with an attack roll using a simple or martial weapon.
Okay.
That's it.
So no
Just
expenditure.
nope. You just get an
That's
extra
fine.
1d8 radiant damage. Not gonna fuss with that one. That's fine. 12th level feat. 13th, Aura of Courage. You and your allies are immune to the frightened condition while in the Aura of Protection. If the frightened ally enters the aura, that condition is suppressed while the ally is there. Okay, great. That makes me think that they're going to be focusing a little bit more on some of the conditions in this.
Well, I mean, you need to have things that can cause that, or spellcasters, or DM who likes abusing conditions. So.
I do. I mean, since the paladin already has an ability to create the frightened condition, I guess it makes sense that they also have aura protections against it. Whether it's going to be utilized by much else besides the paladin, I don't know. We haven't seen monster stack blocks or anything yet. 15th level, restoring touch. When you use lay on hands on a creature, you can also remove one or more of the following conditions: blinded, charmed, dazed, deafened, frightened, paralyzed, or stunned. You must expend 5 hit points from the healing pool of lay on hands for each of these conditions you remove. Those points also don't restore hit points to the creature. Okay, so a little bit more functionality with the lay on hands. Now I can use 5 hit points to also get a bunch of other conditions. You called it. Yep. There it is at 15th level, mind you. So we
bit late in the game, but
from 1st to 15th, yeah, we finally got some extra functionality there. But that's what we're looking at. Now we can get a whole bunch of conditions taken care of. 16th, you have a feat. 17th, aura expansion. Okay, now your aura extends 30 feet rather
That's
than...
much nicer.
Much better. Happier about that. Your party has a little breathing room. You don't all have to be in this one little elevator that you've created. 18th level Divine Conduit. Whenever you roll initiative, you regain 1 use of this class's Channel Divinity.
So that means every time you enter combat, you have a use of Channel Divinity.
Every time you regain a use. So even if you had ones that were there, if you've expended any of them, bop, you get another one back. So,
how many uses can you have?
Of Channel Divinity. Well, let me see if I can explain that to you. So what are we at this point? We're at 18th level. Let me look up here. 3rd level, you have 2 Channel Divinities. By 18th level, you have 4. You can Channel Divinity all day long.
See, I'm going to abuse that. I'm going to waste it all, and then I'm going to start fist fighting with my party members to regain expenditures of that spell.
Yeah.
Can I get in a fight with the rogue? What? Yeah, I just want to fight the rogue. Sure. Yeah. All right, roll initiative. All right, cool. All right, and I'm done fighting.
Exactly. Just using your random fist fights in order to get Channel Divinity.
Yep.
Because there's nothing holier than just starting random fist fights in the streets.
Yeah.
I've got to go around punching orphans in order to show how good a paladin I am.
100%.
Yeah. All right, so a feat at 19th and an epic boon at 20th. Okay, so that's the basics. And now we have your subclass, and the one that they give you here is the Oath of Devotion, which is a pretty basic one. It binds the paladin to the loftiest ideals of justice and order. Those paladins meet the ideals of a knight in shining armor, yada yada yada. It's the basic bitch paladin, basically.
Yes.
For those who are not aware, basically paladins have to take an oath to, protect whatever their ideology is. And so, Oath of Devotion, the tenets of devotion as they lay out here are basically honesty, courage, compassion, and honor.
Boring.
Got
it.
Very boring. Very, very boring. And let's see if the abilities you get for that are equally boring. 3rd level, you get Oath spells, which, you always have certain spells ready. The Oath of Devotion spells, you can probably guess what these are. We've got Protection from Good and Evil and Shield of Faith, Aura of Vitality, Zone of Truth at 5th level.
A lot of standard paladin affairs.
Yes. Free casting, you can cast one of your prepared spells from this feature without expending a spell slot.
That's nice.
And you must finish a long rest before you can use this benefit again. So you get an extra spell slot, basically, for these abilities. Cool. Great. Also at 3rd level, you get a Sacred Weapon. As a bonus action, you can expend 1 use of your Channel Divinity to imbue a simple or martial weapon that you are holding with positive energy for 1 minute. You add your Charisma modifier to attack rolls you make with that weapon, and each time you hit with it, you cause it to deal its normal damage type or radiant damage. The weapon also emits bright light in a 20-foot radius and dim light 20 feet beyond that. You can end this effect as a bonus action. This effect also ends if you aren't holding or carrying the weapon, or if you have the incapacitated condition. Well, that's a pretty good bonus for your basic weapons by the time you hit third.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. And I think that also helps with a few workarounds, because you can use that as radiant damage or your basic, like, I guess, slashing or piercing damage, depending on what you're doing. 6th level, Smite of Protection. Your Divine Smite now radiates protective energy that allows you and your allies to stay in the fight. Whenever you use your Divine Smite, choose yourself or an ally within 30 feet of yourself. The chosen creature gains temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus the level of the spell slot used for the Divine Smite.
That's cool.
Okay, yeah, so a new functionality for Divine Smite. Instead of dealing direct damage, you get extra hit points. 10th level, Aura of Devotion. You and your allies are immune to the Charmed condition while in your Aura of Protection. If a Charmed ally enters, that is suppressed while they are there. That's probably going to be helpful. 14th level. Here we go. The big one. The Master Class. Holy Nimbus. I just love that. As a bonus action, you can imbue your Aura of Protection with Holy Power. The aura gains the following benefit for 1 minute. Okay? Or until you end them as a bonus action. Radiant damage. Whenever an enemy starts its turn in the aura, that creature takes radiant damage equal to your proficiency bonus plus your charisma modifier. Or sunlight. And sunlight. The aura is filled with bright light that is sunlight. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest, unless you expend a spell slot at least 4th level when you use it again. Okay.
So what I'm hearing is you just immolate vampires?
You immolate all the vampires very easily, equal to your proficiency bonus plus your charisma modifier. So by 14th level, just to kind of give everybody an idea, what are we looking at here? Okay, your proficiency bonus by 14th level is 5. You
plus
got
charisma.
Plus your charisma, which by that point could be as high as 5. So that's just 10 damage. By the time you hit 17th level, that's 11 damage. By 17th level, also that extends out to, 30 feet. So...
Just 30 feet of sunlight walking around.
Yep, so...
I would count the sunlight as total cover.
Total cover. Yeah, there you go. The aura is filled with bright light that is sunlight. Yeah, so just, hey, folks, this is great. If you end up in, a Curse of Strahd or something like that for a module, and it's just, lots of vampires and stuff, just get your paladin a high enough level, an Oath of Devotion paladin, and just have them wander on in to a vampire lair and just click Holy Nimbus. It's all over. All over.
Burn the vampires in their own home.
Yep.
You don't want to come out to the light? I brought the light to you.
Yeah. It does seem rude for a house guest, but at the same time, what were they? They were going to suck your blood. So, what are you going to do? It seems a little situational, but still, you do get radiant damage for every enemy, even if they're not vampires. So it's pretty good. Oath of Devotion is not particularly the kind of paladin I'd want to play.
Yeah.
So
it's very defense-oriented.
It's very defense-oriented. It's also very basic. I mean, I've noticed this with a lot of the subclasses that have been listed here, is that they use the most basic version of the subclasses that you could imagine. Sometimes they're good, but a lot of times people are going to want to play something a little different. It would have been interesting if they had done, the Oathbreaker in here.
Yeah.
To see what that looks
I think with the playtest material, they're going with what is the baseline for the class most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Oath of Devotion is what you would consider as a baseline paladin in a lot of cases.
Sure. What would have been helpful, and, this is just not for nothing. This is just me. It would have been helpful in the playtest material, maybe if they had 2 different kinds of subclasses. Just 2. One that's very much in keeping with the class, and then one that is very much a juxtaposition for what we think of as the class, so that when people do that playtesting, they can kind of get an idea of like how this stresses the character class itself, like how one really complements it and how one creates a contrarian sort of thing, which it would be nice if like they had done Oath of Devotion and they had done like Oathbreaker for this one.
Yeah,
that would have been interesting, just to see how the contrasting part of this, especially because subclasses are so integrated into it, and those choices are one of the biggest choices you make in your character development.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think if you want to play the most paladiniest paladin imaginable, this seems perfectly fine. Most of these class features are at least similar to what the paladin had been in 5.
Yeah.
You're getting your auras, you're getting your smiting, you're getting your lay on hands. It's all the class features you expect. I will just cite this one other thing since I was mentioning Oathbreaker, because they do have a little bit of a box here saying breaking your oath. So a paladin tries to hold to the highest standards of conduct, but even the most dedicated paladin is fallible. Sometimes the right path proves too demanding, and sometimes the heat of emotion causes a paladin to transgress their oath. A paladin who has broken a vow typically seeks absolution from a priest of the same faith, or from another paladin of the same order. The paladin might spend an all-night vigil in prayer as a sign of penitence, or undertake a fast or similar act of self-denial. They're such geeks. After a rite of confession and forgiveness, the paladin starts fresh. If a paladin willfully violates their oath and shows no sign of repentance, that would be me, the consequences might be more serious. At the DM's discretion, an impenitent paladin might be forced to take a more appropriate subclass, or even to abandon the class and adopt another one. This is why I would have really liked it if they provided a stat block for the Oathbreaker subclass so people could play around with that. But
yeah,
anything that really stands out from this that's significantly different than your experience playing one?
Not significantly that I noticed. It's been a while since I played a paladin.
Right. Lay on Hands seems to have a little bit more functionality now.
Yeah, I like the versatility of that, and Channel Divinity being able to be used different ways.
Yep.
That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't feel like there's a whole lot different, maybe? The auras are nice, the way they can be used, versatility is also nice.
It's just weird because, like, I've played in a few D&D games, and I've played with a bunch of different groups, and I don't think that I've ever played in a group that had a paladin at all.
Yeah, they're iconic, but they're kind of iffy sometimes,
I've played with lots of druids, played with my fair share of druids, rangers, rogues all day, not so much of the paladins, so I'd like to see more of them just because I think that you could do interesting things with them, but I think that they're usually seen as boring.
Yeah.
For
a good reason.
For a good reason, yeah. It's not nearly as big a change as the druid. The druid is definitely a pretty big departure just because wild shape is so different.
Right.
This is pretty straightforward. So if you were familiar with a 5e version of a paladin, you're probably going to be perfectly fine with this. So, your thoughts on paladins, and if they're worth playing at all, you can leave comments down below. So, Alex, now that we have taken our Oath of Devotion and totally broken it to our audience, how are you feeling?
Oh, perfect. Great. Feel like I'm going to heaven right away.
Yeah.
Speeding my way there.
Shrimp heaven now. Okay, so... I'm a bim bam joke for the folks out there who got it. Anyway, Alex, if people would like to be spirited away to heaven from their Oath of Devotion, where could they go on the internet?
You can go to TotalPubKnockdown.com, where we have an Oath of Devotion right there on our Patreon.
That's right, you can take an Oath of Devotion yourself by joining our Patreon. You get some early release stuff, and you get full video presentations of the podcast and some other material that we have over there with Patreon, and you can get it early. Also, make sure to check out some of the other stuff that we have on the website. There is a new Creatures up as of the last couple weeks, and there is a very, very special Titanium Mine that I put out for April Fool's Day, talking about the greatest video game of all time, Doritos Crash Course.
Great.
You gotta love it. I finally had the courage to say it. And you can also find us on every podcast app known to mankind, and you can find us on social media. I am at Titanium.
I am at EXP Limited, and our show is over at Pebble Knockdown.
So come and check us out over there. And until next time, thank you for joining us. I hope you avoid all of the rock slides. We really hope that they rebuild that convention hall in good timing so that we can be ready for the 24 Total Pebble Knockdown Con. TPCon. Finally
So we got all the toilet paper that they finally restocked after COVID.
Yes, at the TPCon. Yeah. You can look forward to that. In the meantime, though, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.
Bye.